For your soul to make this leap, you're going to have to let go. Before we dive into this further, I'd like to read you a poem by William Arthur Ward. To laugh is to risk appearing a fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas and dreams before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. He may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he cannot learn, feel, change, grow, or live. Chained by his servitude, he is a slave who has forfeited all freedom. Only a person who risks is free. I felt that was quite fitting for the period we're in. I'm filming this a couple of days before the first eclipse of this year. We are gearing up at a soul level for a leap that I feel has been in preparation for lifetimes. The shift that I feel inbound and already in motion is one that has been destined, is one that will alter the course of our soul's trajectory, of our incarnation journey and story. It's rewriting so much of the fear-based conditioning and programming that we may have been cycling in for many, many, many incarnations on Earth. It is truly moving beyond the parameters of what's been known and exalting us into the unknown, which is also the field of potential and possibility, where we create from. We are moving into truly exalted states of creatorship, self-mastery, remembrance. Some people call this shift the shift to 5D. We are about to experience a shift that at a soul level is absolutely vital for conscious evolution and for the anchoring of the new earth. It is a prerequisite to the new earth coming into manifestation. So at the beginning of this video, I said, if you want to make this leap, you're going to have to let go. What this leap at a soul level is requiring of you is the relinquishing of your attachments. Non-attachment in its truest form is an invitation for us to resist nothing and hold on to or grasp nothing. Because everything that we are trying to hold on to, grasp or resist on some level is always coming from a place of fear. We fear that we lack something and therefore we need to hold on to, grip or resist something. When we allow ourselves to come into spaces of non-attachment and we surrender our attachment to an idea, an ideology, a belief, a person, a group of people, an environment, we allow ourselves to open beyond that binding, beyond that constriction of the attachment, and we start to allow ourselves to open to the wholeness, the fullness of who we truly are, which is far beyond anything that we can hope to cling to or resist within this human experience. So this leap it's asking us to get very honest about where do we need to let go. In order to be able to rise high, you can't be tethered or bound to something. You have to be willing to travel light, to unshackle yourself from the things that have perhaps at times been comfortable cages, but they're still cages. I'm feeling this because we're in a South Node eclipse, so this is about karma, it's about potentially even past life, timeline rectification. It's about things that we've been moving through in habituated ways and conditioned ways that simply don't serve us anymore, that are acting as a firmament or as a barrier, a limitation to expansion and to exaltation of consciousness. So I'm really feeling this at a deep level as very deep-seated, kind of unconscious even, it may not even be in conscious awareness, deep-seated conditioning and architecture that's almost become the fabric of who we are, that we don't see it clearly, that we haven't seen it clearly. And perhaps we've moved through many revolutions of cycling through themes around this belief system, this way of being, that have allowed us to slowly gain insight and illumination that it's there. And now we're being asked to say, can you see this and witness it within yourself, this way of being, this embodiment, this orientation? And can you recognize that it is binding you and tethering you to a timeline, a frequency, a trajectory that is no longer in the highest and best good, and is diminishing the expansion that your soul is ready to move into? So I really feel this as a belief system for most of us. This is because ultimately, whatever we need to let go of, it first formed within us as an attachment to an idea or a notion at some level. So whether you need to simply come to that belief system and come to the raw material of what that belief system is within you, or whether you need to follow a thread back, recognize, okay, I am really attached to this person, to this experience, this job, this cycle that I've been in, whatever it is, this food, this substance, and then follow the thread back to what is the underlying belief, idea, ideology, paradigm that underpins that thing still being alive and active in my field. And these are things that are not serving your empowerment, your sovereignty, you feeling truly embodied in your fullness, the fullness of the loving presence that you are, the fullness of your truth, the fullness of your capacity to be present, to be connected to your power as a creator, as a wise being. Where are you still holding on to, like a crutch, something within your being that was only ever designed to serve you for so long? Every belief and every behavior that we adopt and embody at some point served a purpose. It acted as a crutch to get us through difficult times, certain mechanisms within the body, like the fight, flight, freeze response. We don't want to be living from these states, but during times of immense stress, overwhelm, when we've experienced something that our system registers as traumatic, these responses serve a purpose. They serve a purpose to keep us alive. They serve a purpose to help us survive in some capacity. But we are no longer just being invited by the divine to live from survival programming. We've come here to thrive in a way that I don't think many of us have truly experienced on earth yet. Which means that whatever states and behaviors that we were once utilizing or operating from as our base level normal, maybe because those states and behaviors got us through certain periods of our life where we were just trying to survive, or we felt that we were in that survival stress. It's recognizing that your soul cannot expand to the heights, to the breadths, to the depths that it wants to if you are still confining yourself to very limited survival-based, fear-based content and conditioning. So where do you need to let go and really come into a space of loving non-attachment? Because to truly love, to truly know love, means to recognize that the love is not outside of yourself, it's not without, it's within. The source of the love you feel is not the person, it's not the pet, it's not the place, it's not the object. All of these things are simply mirrors reflecting back the love that resides within you and has always resided within you. So when you understand that any attachments we hold are simply coming from aspects of us that still feel entrenched in a sense of lack or scarcity, and you really cultivate a connection to the love that you are, you no longer feel a need to hold on to cling to, or indeed to resist, which is also a form of clinging, but from the other side, from the other way around. Any attachment or aversion, it's still a form of constraining and containing your true nature. So it's time to let these things go. It's also really time to let go. Forgiveness feels really, really big at the moment. There's such a bountiful energy of forgiveness. This could also be because we're in Pisces season and there are a lot of planets in Pisces at the moment, and Pisces energy in the archetype is merging into oneness. It's kind of returning to our natural state of interconnectedness, of unity, of union, transcending limitation. And so as the final sign in the zodiac, Pisces teaches us archetypally that in order to complete our cycle of being human, of experiencing this life in incarnated form and also being divine beings, that to complete our time, we have to let go. And it means lovingly letting go, including, the letting go of burdens we've carried, resentments we've carried, and all of the places within us that have not yet forgiven. Because this also becomes a limitation and a constraint to how much love we can embody and emanate, how much truth we can embody and emanate, how much presence we can embody and emanate. So it's worth investigating at this time, who or what do you need to forgive? And by forgive, my interpretation of forgiveness is radical acceptance. Acceptance and resolution within myself. It doesn't need to, and often doesn't, involve another person. Doesn't need to be a discussion. It doesn't need to be a justification of what's happened. It's simply you choosing to resolve whatever feels unresolved within you for your own liberation and freedom. This sort of carries on and continues on from the video I made a few weeks ago with regards to, whether we want to be right on our journey or whether we want to be free. If we are orientated towards our spiritual path and our soul's liberation, first and foremost, then our orientation is not towards egoic righteousness. It's not towards one-upmanship. It's not towards or focused on, playing games and, playing in binaries and tit for tat and duality. When the soul is really intent on liberation and we have come coded with a blueprint for an exalted way of being on earth, then all of these things that may feel really compelling to the egoic nature become redundant to spiritual liberation. And our task is to honor the soul's truth, not the egoic need for to feel righteous, to feel justified, to defend, to attack. but instead to allow ourselves to rest as the love that we are, as the truth that we are, because that presence and that emanation is so beyond any potential defense, attack, justification, sense of righteousness. It's like identifying with one single puzzle piece when you're the whole puzzle. When we're identified with a certain way of being, when we're gripping in a certain place and we're unwilling to let go and really come into forgiveness, resolution, and acceptance, we are containing ourselves. And the invitation at this time with this soul leap really feels like a time to free ourselves, to choose freedom in a world that by and large wants to condition and normalize enslavement, unconsciousness, the veiling of love and truth. It is an act of rebellion, spiritual rebellion, and spiritual reclamation to choose to liberate yourself in a world that won't validate that won't approve of it, that will probably often have something perhaps unpleasant or unkind to say about that path. It's really knowing what you are focused on in your orientation. If you're here to live an exalted, soul-led path and life, then we are also loyal to that which is true, and we no longer allow the external world to have dominion or governance over us and over our soul's path. And that means every single person, every single external presentation, every single external influence or energy, everything comes back to sovereignty, self-sourcing, connecting with God within. So we're kind of moving through this huge karmic unshackling, really letting go of deep layers within our being, deep layers where we've been in contraction, where we have still gripped, because this process of awakening, it is like peeling away the layers of an onion. And so we're really getting to the kind of the deeper subconscious and unconscious layers within our being. These are often layers that have been, what's the word? Not adopted, but, passed down through the conditioning, the epigenetics, the ancestral lineages, and are kind of encoded within these bodies as memory. These are also soul themes and incarnation cycles that we've been moving through over and over and over again. So I'm going to give you an example. I won't go into it in too much detail now, but I came across today because I'm having some sort of concerning symptoms with my body which have been ongoing for quite a long time, and I've got a sense that something's not right. And it's a gnosis within me that I can feel something's not right. And there's been this almost sort of avoidance to really want to see what it is and to see what the root cause of this imbalance within me is. And so I went to a church today in Aix-en-Provence, where I'm staying, and I sat in meditation. I said, I'm not leaving this church, I'm not leaving this pew until I've really gone within and I've looked at the architecture of what this is. So I sat and I went through a very deep self-inquiry process, and I touched on or began to uncover, I don't want to say it's a belief system, it's like, it's an energy within me that I'm very familiar with, that is almost so deeply ingrained and buried within me that it's really hard for me to see with conscious awareness, because it's almost become part of my subconscious identity structure. And this is this energy and this architecture within me, this wounded architecture within me, is an energy that actually wants to self-destruct, wants this body, and I'm sharing this in the hope that perhaps this also offers a reflection for others listening, is this quite deep. It's quite messy. It's not comfortable for me to sort of experience this or speak about it. It's an aspect or an energy within me, a shadow aspect that wants to self-destruct, that wants this body to fail, that wants this body to develop cancer, wants this body to get really ill so that I can die. Now, this is really deep because I've gone through multiple episodes throughout my life of suicidal ideation, and I started to witness this as a program that was playing out, that was actually an imprint from another soul incarnation cycle where I had committed suicide, and it had become sort of this default get out of jail button that I thought, I didn't think, my soul had kind of become imprinted with, that any time I came into suffering, that is what was the entrenched pathway. And I actually saw this as a program that keeps us looping in not only suffering and karmic cycles, but keeps us trapped at a soul level within the fear-based matrix. There's levels of interference with this, and there's depths to this that I'm not going to go into right now. But essentially, I saw this architecture within me, that underlying these physical symptoms, there is an architecture and an energy within my system that is almost quite sadistic, that takes pleasure in knowing that this body is degenerating and that I'll be free of the human experience. That it's a very remote, cold, it feels quite reptilian. You know, there's other aspects to this. It feels like almost like sort of like a hijacked aspect that has been installed with or instilled with this sense that of depravity, that there's joy to be had in suffering, that and that it's intent on destroying this body. And there was, I really went into all these areas. There'd be relief if I found out that I was dying. There'd be this sense of, I don't care because I don't want to be on earth anyway. And so this is what I'm getting at, is this theme that has been present throughout my life, this sense of, why am I here? Why am I on earth? There has been, since I was a child, and I've spoken about this in the past, since I was a child, this has been sort of a lingering, looming question for me. Why am I here? What actually gives my life meaning? Because there has always been this sort of sense that there's something within me that feels devoid of connection to this human experience in such a way that it would self-destruct and choose to evacuate this human incarnation, and takes joy in that process. So there's many layers to this. There's karmic soul themes that I'm unraveling. There's infiltration from the reptilian Archon agenda. There's many, many, many layers to this. It's something that I'm also really sensing through my family lineage, particularly my paternal lineage, where there's a lot of infiltration. So this is really deep, it's really gnarly, and I can see that until I liberate myself from this program and actually witness it, instead of resisting it, denying it, avoiding it, and witnessing it for what it is, and choose to bring the light of love and God into this space, instead of identifying with it, which is often what I used to do, today in the church was the first time I was able to witness the fullness of this architecture and just witness it, instead of falling into that slightly, it would be good actually to leave this body, because what's the point of being here anyway? There was identification before, now there's space. Now there's the space to witness it and to finally see, okay, I see this as a program running, a program that I feel has run for many lifetimes, and it doesn't serve the highest at all. And I choose another way. I choose to bring the light and love of God here, into this space within my being, into this energy. I choose to liberate this energy. I don't choose to avoid it or deny it or shame it or judge it. I see it for what it is, and I simply choose with non-attachment, with non-judgment, to lovingly let it go, to bathe it in light, to exalt myself beyond this architecture that acts as kind of like a net, keeping my soul from being able to expand into greater joy, greater sense of depth and purpose in life. So this is the kind of level I feel we're dealing with right now. It's deep, deep deconditioning, deep programming we're letting go of, programming that has perhaps kept us enslaved or ensnared across lifetimes, that has been very prevalent through our ancestral lineages. Where are we truly not allowing ourselves to be free? How are we still enslaving ourselves with identification to programming and conditioning? And we've got to get really honest. There's a lot of potential uncomfortable shadow work in this time, because we might meet aspects within ourselves that feel gnarly, wild, weird, depraved. And what we're doing in this process is bringing the light and love of awareness to these parts, knowing that we are not these parts. We are the light and love and awareness that holds these parts. And we can be the loving embrace that returns these parts back to wholeness, back to coherence. And I feel that this is then making space for the activation of an entirely new way of being on Earth, by and large for us at this point in humanity's evolutionary process, and that is of moving from bliss and joy instead of suffering, fear, darkness and contraction. So I spoke about this briefly in one of my previous videos, where I was receiving this message from the great goddess Sophia: enough suffering, it's time now to learn through joy. It's time to learn and grow through joy, exaltation, bliss, light, possibility, potential. When we allow ourselves to let go of and dissolve these areas within us and in our lives that limit us, we are creating space and paving a pathway for an entirely new way of being, one that we deeply long for at a soul level. We didn't come here to live in survival mode, to live in scarcity. That may be comfortable to certain parts of the egoic structure and the egoic nature, but to the soul, it starves the soul. It stifles the soul to live this way, because it's not the truth. And so there is a massive opportunity at this time to really shed some dead weight and to open ourselves up to an entirely different way of being, a timeline that is bathed in grace, bathed with joy, bathed with abundance and wealth and prosperity at every level of our being. To recognize our true divine nature and claim it at every single level of our being. To choose what we are loyal to. Are we loyal to love, possibility, potential? Or are we loyal to our conditioning? Are we loyal to fear? Are we loyal to the ego? Ultimately, we must claim the path forwards for ourselves. We must claim and decide that we are going to live lives infused with joy and greatness and expansion, and that we will no longer settle or cycle in these ways of suffering anymore. I want you to just tune in for a moment and feel into, when you meet someone on the street that is really entrenched in suffering, really entrenched in victimization, really entrenched in a sob story, really entrenched in a sense of disempowerment, what does that do vibrationally to you? How does that make you feel? You might feel a sense of pity for them. You might feel a sense of repulsion. If you're a people-pleasing empath, you might feel a sense to need to fix or save them. But you can already detect at an energetic level that this is not a sovereign, empowered, exalted vibration to be moving through the world in. Then I want you to compare to when you meet someone on the street or out and about in your daily life who is a light. They are luminous in their presence. They smile. They are emanating and oozing just this beautiful, divine energy, presence, soul light. What impact does that have on your being when you encounter these sorts of people? For me, it creates a sense of real buoyancy in me. It creates a sense of upliftment in me. So when we allow ourselves to shine, we support the upliftment of others at an energetic level through the exchange of energy that's always taking place within the unified field. We serve the web of life with our embodiment. It's time to get rid of all of these stories and these ideas that because there is suffering in the world, we have to be in suffering. I've lived this way for so long. Let me tell you, it does not lift the web of life out of suffering for you to also be contributing to the web of life with suffering. I've tried, believe me, I've tried. And I've seen time and time again that I have a much greater impact on people when I choose to live from love and joy and exaltation and expansion. When one person's light is shining, it inspires the light within others. When one person's flame is lit, they can light many other people's flames. So, the flame, the light of your soul is calling you to leap now, to be brave, to be bold, to allow yourself to relinquish the need to know at a linear, kind of logical level, with a lot of that kind of left brain activity. This is a time now of moving into a lot of kind of non-linear, dynamic, synchronistic, mysterious, magical orchestrations, that the path of the soul is not a linear one. It's spiral-like, it's fractal-like, and it requires us to be fluid and flexible and attuned to the present moment so that we can hear and listen, not with the mind and not from the mind, but from the soul's innate guidance and wisdom that is connected to God, Goddess wisdom, that is plugged in at the source. So I feel there is a real bounty to harvest here. There is a real sort of time of great reaping upon us at a soul level if we can have the courage to move through this time with honesty, to get really clear about what's working and what's not working relationship-wise, health and fitness-wise, where we live, what we consume, not just with our food, but energetically with our awareness, social media, our habits, our behaviors. There's a lot of Virgo energy present as well during this eclipse. So that energy is all about the day-to-day kind of micro moments, the micro habits, choices, structures, routines that build the life we live, build the pathways that carry us forwards. Are those pathways leading you somewhere you want to be? Are they leading you to the life you want to live? And if you're not on a trajectory that feels empowering, that feels like it lights your soul's light right up, look at the micro. Look at what habits, structures, or lack of structures, what micro choices you're making that are building that pathway and trajectory. You will need to alter at this level, those micro moments, micro embodiments that go to building a pathway. They all kind of accumulate into something far more substantial and significant. And within the Patreon community, I've just uploaded a turn up the joy dial meditation, which I really enjoyed doing. So if you're interested in joining me in Patreon, we've got if you're watching this in real time, we've got our first live ascension call on the eclipse on Thursday the 13th. That's going to be one of 2 calls that we have every month, and there's lots of bonus content going in there. I'm having a little bit of trouble uploading videos to the portal, so for now I'm uploading them to YouTube with links that you can then access through the Patreon portal, with the intention that all of the content is embedded within that portal once I can figure out how to get videos on there because they haven't been uploading. So I'm going to leave it here. Your soul is ready to leap, but you have to let go. You have to let go. Let go of the known variables, let go of the conditioning, let go of the expectations, let go of the need for validation, let go of the standards that you've absorbed and have been imposed upon you by a very sick society. Can you be brave and courageous enough to listen to your innate knowing, your innate guidance, your innate wisdom, to let the light within you lead you forwards unapologetically? Because this leap that your soul is about to make is a big one. This is a shift of lifetimes, a paradigm shift that is preparing us to anchor more deeply in the new earth timelines, as the alternative timelines of disempowerment and devolution begin to really anchor. Our souls are really asking us to make our choice. And that choice at a micro level starts with our daily embodiment and our choices, as we've spoken about. Those things always build to ultimately pave the pathway that the soul is going to be experiencing. Choose wisely. I'm sending you lots of love, many blessings, and I hope to see many of you there within the Patreon community and on the call with me on Thursday. And you're welcome to join me at any tier whenever you feel ready to deepen on your journey, if it resonates to deepen with me. Sending lots of love, and I'll see you again in the next transmission.